In the last episode, we looked at the most common and consistent rest setups for Jigglypuff players to learn. These are the kind of setups you pretty much have to know to succeed as a Jigglypuff player, even at low to mid level. In this episode, we're going to look at much more advanced rest setups. While some will still be fairly consistent, others will be much more situational. Also, I'm obviously going to skip covering back air rest because I covered that in a different video, which you can check out on my channel. Okay, to start things off, we have down throw rest, which is arguably the easiest advanced setup in this video. So down throw rest only works on certain DI, specifically DI in and no DI, and can be difficult to punish without practice. It also straight up won't work against a lot of characters. Still, it's a great way to mix up your opponent and hit them hard when they don't expect it. I'd recommend using this as an occasional mix-up against Spaceys who are expecting a forward throw or a back throw off a stage, or against characters like Sheik where it's surprisingly reliable. One of the reasons I decided to include this in the advanced section rather than the first episode is that there are some fun situations where down throw rest works in an entirely different way. If Puff leaves the ground during her throw, she enters a neutral state which allows her to rest immediately. This means that if you get a down throw off of Randall, for example, you can time it so Randall cancels the throw and sets you up for a unique rest that's really quite stylish. While Sing is a pretty awful move, you can actually cancel it on the ledge in order to put your opponent to sleep without sitting there and lag afterwards. To perform this, grab the ledge and jump into up B. Jigglypuff will use Sing and then grab the ledge to cancel Sing's lag. If you manage to connect the Sing hitbox, you'll have plenty of time to hit them with a rest afterwards. However, since you're not invincible while canceling Sing on the ledge, this technique is largely a gimmick and shouldn't be considered a staple of any Jigglypuff's game by any means. However, it's still useful to threaten this option against an opponent that might not know how to deal with it. And on top of that, there are some pretty cool clips of Sing being used in very creative ways, so experiment to find other applications. Fair rest works very similar to back air rest and involves punishing an opponent who DIs in on your fair with a rest. It's a DI dependent setup that can be kinda hard to get used to, but once you've become familiar with it, it's something a lot of opponents will not see coming and can net you an early kill. Also, it's just really cool, so do it. Next up we have AUTOCANCEL NAIR rest. This is actually a rest that works on literally the entire cast, but it can be kind of unreliable if you miss the spacing. To perform an AUTOCANCEL rest, you want to make sure you AUTOCANCEL your NAIR. While Jigglypuff can do this at higher heights, a well-timed short hop NAIR will do the job. If you're unsure about it, the way to tell if you hit the AUTOCANCEL is if there's a little ripple on the ground instead of dust, like when you get an L cancel. AUTOCANCEL reduces the lag significantly and allows you to transition right into a rest off the punish, which just isn't possible if you L cancel it, so you have to AUTOCANCEL the NAIR for this rest to work. This rest setup works best at low to mid percent, and it's especially effective against ice climbers because you're usually able to hit Nana, Popo, or both of them because they're such a large target. However, one of the reasons why people don't go for this as much is that an AUTOCANCEL NAIR will also lead to a grab, which against characters like Spaceys is a really great way to set up for a rest. So rather than risking a NAIR rest, they go for a NAIR grab and get a rest from an up throw or something like that. So you have to weigh your options. So this next rest setup is a bit different because it's resting badly timed moves from your opponent. For example, while Fox's up throw up air is deadly, it might surprise you to know that many players actually don't time it perfectly, even among the pros. Part of the reason in the pros case is because they intentionally mix up the timing of the up air to make it harder to consistently hit the SDI. Because of this, you can actually time your down B to the moment your opponent is about to hit you, to rest a Fox player who didn't time it correctly. However, Fox players can counter this by going for back air off of up throw instead of up air. This usually only works at low percents as well, and it's generally safer to try to hit the SDI, but it's something you can incorporate. While it's possible to punish a lot of poorly timed moves semi-consistently, one of the other most common setups is to rest Captain Falcon off of his down throw. I'll let Scar explain this first.
You need to be cautious because if he mashes out down B, that's your stop. Yeah. It's life or death. See?
There
he
it
mashed
is.
out down B.
That's okay, he's fine.
Now he's going to land it. Oh!
So what you just saw is Hungrybox deliberately mashing down B to rest in the hopes that Hax mistimes his aerial and isn't able to get the kill. Part of the reason you're able to mash in this scenario, but not with Fox, is because you can SDI out of Fox's up air. However, with knee, SDI won't prevent you from getting hit hard. So if you're facing a good opponent, it's sometimes worth going for it because they're going to kill you if you don't mash anyway. So while this looks like a once-in-a-lifetime rest, it's actually something you can get pretty consistently against Captain Falcon players, and I strongly recommend that Puff players try it out. Much to some players' surprise, down air rest isn't just a setup in Smash 64, but works in Melee as well. Dare rest relies on sending your opponent into a tumble animation similar to the one that Fox's Shine does, and requires a tricky L cancel timing to get it to work. The term that some people like to use is spike stun. Because of this, it can be kind of difficult to hit it, and dare into grab or up smash is often a safer option that can also lead into kills. Despite all of this, this is a reliable way to connect to rest and is something I see becoming more common farther down the road. If you'd like to learn more about this setup, there's a video in the description that I've linked to from the user Jigglypluff that goes into way more detail for this setup. Also, it's worth mentioning you technically don't need to have that spike stun animation, but it makes it way more consistent, as you can see in the Samus clip here. If you shield drop onto your opponent after they hit you with a laggy move while you're on a platform, you're often able to connect a rest if you position yourself correctly. This is something I see becoming more and more common as Jigglypuff players learn the spacing, as shield dropping is a very quick option that's becoming commonplace among even mid-level players thanks to UCF. In fact, the Puff player 119J reached out to me to share a combo video he made where he uses shield drop rests quite frequently, so I'm sure we'll see more shield drop rests in the future, and shoutouts to him. Meteor cancel rests are probably one of the hardest setups to hit in this video as it largely depends on your reaction time and experience. To perform this, meteor cancel a move like Falcon's down air by jumping, then jumping into your opponent with rest. Because down air is relatively laggy, you actually have the time to connect into a rest before Falcon or other characters like Yoshi can do anything. This is definitely something you'll want to practice, but thanks to the latest version of 20XX, the recording feature allows you to make it much easier. This is another tricky setup, if you can even call it that. So using your Legend Invincibility, you can bait out a move from your opponent and punish the lag afterwards. It's pretty tricky to time, but players like Tech have shown us that it's possible to do more than once, and we may see this more as the metagame develops. In a similar fashion, a ledge dash rest is also something that we could start seeing as Puff develops more, but I don't see that happening for quite some time. Still, it's cool to see it occasionally. If you're really trying to put pressure on your opponent, you can actually rest a small shield in the hopes that you'll shield poke, or even a full shield, and you could also break the shield thanks to the strength of the rest hitbox. Generally speaking, if you go for a shield poke on a full shield, you want to aim for the lower rear corner of their shield, although some characters have unique vulnerable hitboxes to aim for as well, so be aware of that. This is also easier on Yoshi's in Stadium given the difference in platform height and length. If you break the shield, you'll still wake up before your opponent does and can hit them with a rest right after, so in some ways it's worth going for if this opponent has a very small shield. However, shield poking into rest requires tricky spacing, so I wouldn't exactly say it's the most reliable way to connect a rest, but that's also coming from someone who hasn't practiced it a ton. Next up, there's resting an opponent's spot dodge. While this setup is kind of obvious, it's also not particularly reliable. It really relies on a hard read to pull it off, so I personally wouldn't recommend it over punishing it in a different way. Still, it looks pretty cool when you pull it off, so props to the people that do land it. Last but not least, we have an edge cancel rest. This is definitely one of the hardest setups in this video, but it's also one of the coolest. And while I've only landed this a few times in my entire life, it's also not something I've actually practiced, so I imagine you could get it more reliably if you put in the effort. To perform this, hit your opponent with an aerial near the platform and edge cancel the landing lag so you can follow up with a rest afterwards. While this is definitely difficult, you can actually practice it in 20XX semi-reliably. Also, you can edge cancel on that weird lip on Pokemon Stadium to be especially swag, so experiment with that for fun. It's worth mentioning that the Jigglypuff player Fana has a video of him doing this as far back as 2007, so I think it is possible, but incredibly difficult to connect this kind of rest, let alone connect it consistently. And that's all the rest setups that I can think of. If there are any that you think I missed, make sure to mention it in the comments. Also, out of curiosity, where would you place Jigglypuff on the tier list? If you like this episode, please consider subscribing, commenting, and liking the video. That kind of thing really goes a long way to helping the channel grow. You can also support me on Patreon. Even $1 a month can make a huge difference, so if you're interested, there's a link on screen and in the video description. With that in mind, I want to give a shout out to Evan Oliver for once again helping me record clips, Richard Zapp for his work on the Technical Machine 44 combo video, and Daniel Gomez for his Jigglypluff channel. I'd also like to shout out Joseph Escobar, Andy, Ryan Binstock, and Shadowninja for continuing to support this channel on Patreon. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.